welcome to the Trading Post. And here's me and my buddy Noodle, my little co-host. As you can tell, he's still a little bit out of it. Anyways, this is episode 3. And I think we're going to dive into a very interesting subject today. We're going to talk about the escape from Alcatraz and the men who possibly escaped or possibly didn't. We'll have to dive into it here, shall we? So let's start this out here. Okay, Alcatraz prison is located just off the coast of San Francisco, California, and has been one of the world's most dangerous prisons. It is a remote island surrounded by shark-infested waters and was considered a great location to hold the most dangerous criminals. It was recorded that 36 inmates died attempting to escape. It's a lot. Not a single inmate could get past the guards or the rough seas until June 1962, when 3 people escaped. The details of their escape were not understood fully until January 2018, when the FBI was compelled to reopen the investigation after receiving a letter. Okay, well, this is an interesting one. This has got a lot going on with it. Okay, it says, this maximum security prison was built on a distant island with the aim of keeping and isolating the most dangerous individuals in the world. This was made home to the most experienced felons in America. There's no doubt about that. This seems an unbelievable feat to achieve. First to have 3 people escape, and second to survive the waters alive. It was thought they died during escape, but evidence was too minimal. But a recent letter left the authority no choice but to order for a new investigation. Okay. So we're going to dive into it here. Here's inmate number 1, Frank Morris Lee, the man behind the plan. This man was the real deal, experienced, clever, skilled, and ingenious. Growing up wasn't easy for him. He learned how to survive at an early age. He was orphaned at the age of 11, and his turbulent childhood came with issues. He was a hothead and convicted of a felony at the age of 13. With his IQ being 133, he was certainly smart, lending credence to him becoming the master planner of the Great Escape. Frank Lee Morris had served in numerous penitentiaries across the nation after several strings of little crimes as a young man. He was transferred from one place to another until he finally arrived at Louisiana State Penitentiary, which was dubbed Alcatraz of the South. Pardon me. He managed to flee while serving a 10-year sentence for robbing a bank. He may have deemed it a practice round after an entire year of attempting to outsmart law enforcement, but eventually he was captured and sent to Alcatraz. Now, inmates 2 and 3, the brothers. Once in Alcatraz, Frank Lee met the 2 brothers, who eventually joined his squad. Their names were Clarence and John Anglin. These 3 will later join forces with another man named Alan West and form a 4-man squad. The brothers were initially from Georgia, but relocated to work in Florida. Their childhood was quite normal. These brothers had a very close bond. I mean, they were really, really tightly knit. They would pick cherries and swim in Michigan's lakes as kids. So, that was a little background on them. They equally had a darker side to them, and in 1956 they were caught for bank robbery. However, this arrest is far from the end for these brothers. The brothers had their share of misfortune before Alcatraz. They had attempted to flee from Atlanta Penitentiary multiple times, but were not successful. Their unending rebellion eventually landed them in Alcatraz. After all members were picked, they formed an escape plan. With their experience on how to maneuver their way around the guards and break free from their cells. Now we're going to discuss the plan. The plan itself was pretty straightforward. Get out of jail, swim across to the shore. The feat, however, would be considered impossible. As mentioned prior, 36 inmates had died on earlier attempts of escape. To pull this off, they would have to use all their experience and expertise and build a level of trust and loyalty among each other. They were aware that chances of success were stacked against them, with their inmates calling them insane. But the line between crazy and genius is a thin line. Well, here we go with the start. Ironically, all inmates served in Atlanta Penitentiary before arriving at Alcatraz. What a coincidence. This might explain why it didn't take long for them to trust one another and to carry out the plan. The inmates had nothing but time to plan. For it to be successful, it needed all the brain power and resources they could muster. They had to collect materials. So how did they acquire resources while stuck in the cell? Fortunately for them, the jail doubles as a plant. Inmates could earn a living by working for U.S. Army, making clothes, furnishings, or shoes. This opened up opportunities for them to acquire resources, and considering they were all four sent there for nonviolent crimes, the guards were not so interested in them, and due to this, were able to keep low profiles. Sorry, I heard something. They knew their absence would be noticed immediately once they left the cell. So they created life-size papier-mâché dummies to place in their beds. In their beds. Next, they would need a way off the island. So they had to devise a plan on how to get off the island. Each member had their own duties to tend to. The brothers made the dummies while Frank Lee was responsible for other tasks. The dummy was made out of soap wax, real hair from the barbershop, and toilet paper to make the heads. Morris spent most of his time focusing on a raft and life jackets. Each night around 5:30 to 9 p.m., they would chip away at the rock in their cells in order to gain access to the ventilation system. When no one was looking, they would remove the grate and chip away with spoons they stole or bits of wood that they gathered. This was the longest part of this plan. It would take them months and weeks to nibble away and remove the rock. You can only imagine. It'd be a really tough feat to just try and chisel away at that stuff. It's definitely a tough feat. That's definitely months worth of time and effort. And they had to be very persistent to try and accomplish this feat. I mean, this is a lot of work. But they had nothing but time to plan their escape and to work on it. And that's what they did. Luckily for them, You know, even in the 60s, Alcatraz was considered old and was crumbling. When the inmates showered and washed their dishes, salt water would pass through the pipes, which gradually damaged the pipes over time. It equally leaked into the walls and softened them. And they realized this. They realized this and took advantage of it by observing when and where to chip away to make things easier, because it was already weakened in those areas. I know we're all wondering, how did no one hear the noise? Like, how would no one hear the noise if these people were chipping at it? And you're talking months on end. And trying to do hours at a time, possibly. In the 60s, the inmates were permitted to have music hours in their rooms every day due to prison reform legislation. They used this to their advantage. For instance, Frank Lee Morris would play his accordion loudly every night to channel any noise created by the chipping. They finally got through the wall, and on the other side, there was an unsecured corridor with pipes running up and down on the other side of the wall. They would use the pipes to climb to the top of the corridor. After climbing up 3 flights to the highest level of the roof, the next step was they would have to open one of the shafts. They began working on their plan after seeing one of the shafts were not cemented over. So that kind of decided it for them. There was 3 shafts, and 2 of them were cemented and 1 of them wasn't. So obviously they want to do the one that's not cemented. It's going to make it easier, right? I mean, hey, whatever makes it easier for you and get you out of there quicker. So by May 1962, the brothers and Frank Lee were finally ready to break through the cell walls. And by stitching and gluing separate raincoats together, they created a raft and life vests. Upon completion, they used 50 raincoats to build the items required. At this point, 3 of the 4 inmates were all set to go, but the gang still had to wait for Alan West. He wasn't done yet. The walls were harder where he was at. I mean, on his side of the cell, the walls were harder, and he had difficulty catching up with them. He was finally ready by June, which was 2 months later at this point. He gave the signal that he was ready, but then something occurred that might have thrown the whole plan out of whack. They set up the decoys and prepared to go. While Morris and the brothers went through their holes, Alan was having difficulty because he miscalculated. His hole was a little bit too tight and he couldn't get through. He thought he was going to, but he couldn't. So after waiting several months, the other guys, they grew impatient and they decided to leave him behind after unsuccessful attempts had been made to help him for hours to try and get him through. As tough as the decision was to leave him, it was advantageous for them due to the less weight in the raft to try to do the escape, so it gave them a better chance of survival to get through and get to the shore. So after this, you know, the other 3, they go on about their way. They're climbing up the wall. You know, they had to climb up 30 feet to get to the roof, to the hatch that's not cemented shut. Finally reaching a height of 100 feet overall, steadily they descended while on the other side of the piping, which was outside the building. So they went up and then they went over and they climbed down. Okay, so they landed by the area close to the shower blocks and circumvented the guards. Once they eventually reached the shore, they would have to stop to pump the raft to inflate it. This would be the last time any of the three were ever heard from. They estimate they set out to sea at 11:30 p.m. that night. After finding the decoys, the alarm sounded the next morning. Other prisoners couldn't realize the fact that 3 inmates escaped. No one knew if the 3 even managed to make it out safe or if they drowned in the waters. They had no clue. So, having heard of his friend's escape, Alan West attempted his escape. But he didn't have a raft. So, he was kind of, his plan was, he didn't have much of a plan because he didn't have the raft. So, Alan chose to return back to his cell, even though he was out at the shore and he was so close to freedom. He didn't deem it safe enough for him to attempt it because it was shark-infested waters. I mean, he just decided to turn back. So Alan West, when he got back there, like later on, this is probably days after or whatever, however long, he finally decides, he tells the warden, later on down the road, how they did it, which is how we know about this story, or a lot of it. So, it's like there's just different things, that compiles up. I mean, the family, the brothers' family had encountered, they had gotten a Christmas card. I think that following year or that year, after they escaped from the brothers with their signatures on it. There's other evidence too from years later on. They had a picture taken in Brazil in 1975 that showed what the experts had deciphered to be the Anglin brothers. That's who it was. It was the Anglin brothers. So also the Anglin brothers, their other brother, Robert, was on his deathbed, and he confessed that between 1963 and 1987, he was in contact with both of the brothers, but eventually lost communication with them. So who knows why? Nobody knows. But also, it was disclosed in January 2018, a letter from John Anglin was received by San Francisco Police Department in 2013. The FBI reopened the case officially and have been focused and determined on locating and capturing at least one of the 3. It is unknown as to why the FBI did not receive any info as regards to the letter until 5 years after it was sent. This resulted in even more mysteries surrounding the case. Definitely. Okay. One last fact. The letter shared intimate details on the convict's escape and whereabouts. It states that, "My name is John Anglin. In June 1962, I escaped from Alcatraz with my brother, Clarence and Frank Morris. I'm 83 years old and I'm in bad shape. I've got cancer." Yes, we all accomplished our goals that night, but it was a close call. Frank died in October 2008. His tomb is under another name in Argentina. My brother passed away in 2011. It says, and this is another thing, it says that the writer that claimed to be John Anglin revealed, what the fuck? Oh, hold on. What was that? Noodle, what do you... He says, my brother passed away in 2011. It says the writer claimed to be John revealed where he lived after he escaped. He writes, this is the honest and real truth. I could tell you that for 7 years I have been living in Minot, North Dakota, and a year in Fargo, North Dakota. The BBC analyzed some of the parts of the letter and believed he has lived a larger part of his years following the escape in Seattle, Washington. Remarkably, the letter states he was now living in Southern California, just a few miles away from where he fled. Could this mean that one of the greatest masterminds behind one of the history's greatest escapes has been so close? You know, it says, he clearly stated, this is some more of it, it says he clearly stated that he is in poor health and asked for assistance. He attempted to work out a way to get assistance, even though it meant going back to prison during his final years. Will law enforcement agencies ever agree with such terms? You know, the end of the letter concluded, if you announce on TV and promise that I will go to jail for no more than a year and get medical care, I will write back to let you know precisely where I am. This is not a joke. There's a lot to unpack on that. I also have an added on bonus for you guys for something I've watched and gathered some more information from the History Channel documentary that they had about this, and was looking into it a little bit too with that. And on that, they had discovered that there's family members that claimed when the brother's mother died, they actually came back for the funeral and they was dressed as women, standing in the background, because nobody knew who they were, and it was kind of out of sorts. But they left right after, so it's not like they stuck around or anything like that. Another fact is that none of the family members ever wanted to look for them because they knew that would bring trouble on them. If they would start to poke and prod, it would just bring more problems for the brothers. So it was pretty much better off left alone. They knew that they was alive, and in that sense, that was good enough for them. They had faith, and they knew that they were still alive. So this is a wild story. It's just like unrealistic, trying to grasp all of this stuff that they did. As another thing, they actually made a drill out of a vacuum motor to get through some of the hard stuff they had to get through as a drill, use it as a drill. And that's ingenuity. It's resourcefulness. These guys were not dummies by any means. To have to be able to escape, not get caught by the guards, that's problem number one. Problem number two is figuring out how to get the resources and how to be resourceful enough to get the resources where you need them to be. And then to devise such an ingenious plan to get everything to mesh together, and then to be able to make a raft out of raincoats that you sewed together. 50 raincoats. That's a lot of work. Not to mention all the chipping away at the concrete with spoons and whatever else you was doing, So it's mind-boggling is what it is. And these are the type of mysteries that intrigue me. I'm sure it intrigues all of you, because I'm sure you wouldn't be watching if you wasn't interested in the subject. But there's a lot more out there, and I'm going to try and cover as many as I can. And if there's any that you have in mind that you'd like to see or hear or watch All you have to do is comment, like, subscribe. Just let me know your opinions and what you think. And if there's any ideas that you have for me to make this show a little bit better or more interesting, let me know. By any means. I'd be glad to. I'd be glad to. I plan on doing everything I possibly can. I want to do, we'll do things, everything from cryptids, UFOs, all that crazy, all that other stuff. And we'll do all the mysteries, like missing 411 cases, things like that. We'll try and touch up on some of that. Just about anything and everything. You know, we'll go down through the different lists of cryptids and things like that and talk about them and what they got for that. But yeah, this is a channel here where we can all hang out. Just be ourselves, enjoy ourselves, be happy. Life's too short not to be. And we're going to put whatever we want to on this channel that interests us. So, if you have any recommendations, by any means, please, throw them up there for us. I'll be glad to. Also, sorry I was looking down a lot. I had a lot of notes on this one because this was a very in-depth, in-depth one. But I'm gonna work on improvement every episode. I'm gonna work on improving and getting better at this. I'm hoping to grow. I'm hoping to learn and do better. And if there's any tips, tricks, or hints or anything like that you want to give me, please do. Please do. And by the way, sorry for that little outburst earlier. I just didn't realize that Noodle fell out of his cage, and I thought he hurt himself. Scared me. Anyhow, y'all have a great night, and I hope that this kind of tickles your mystery bone, I guess you could call it, and maybe puts a little thought on you, you know, like makes you think about it. Like, who knows? I mean, maybe they didn't survive it, maybe they did. I mean, there's no evidence that states contrary to either one, but if there was any issues, you would assume that they would have some evidence of something. But as far as I know, and from like I said, the documentary that I watched, and then I read up and researched this as best I could to give you all the pertinent information that I could find on this. And this is where we fall at with it. So, I mean, I'm not going to try to sway any of you listeners one way or the other. But I can tell you, I personally might lean towards the direction that they did get out. They did get away. Because another tidbit I'll throw out there before I go is on the documentary that I was watching. They actually did a test in a little rowboat going from Alcatraz across to see if it was possible or feasible for prisoners to escape. And they made it across. They made it across. And the thing is, too, what also came into play, and this is another fact that it slipped my mind, but, pardon me for that, but is at the later hours, the current would have helped push them to the shore and made it easier for them to escape. So that's a known fact as well. And all this stuff culminates, and it just kind of stacks up and layers up and layers up, and it gets to the point where I look at it this way. I think I think for a fact they got away. I think they got away. And where they lived, who knows? But I mean, according to what's been said, one was in Argentina, one in Brazil, one in here in the States. Yeah, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Believe what you want to believe. Find your own truth. Find your own truth, and I'm sure you'll come to your own conclusion as to what you want to think about it. And I hope this was an intriguing one for you, because this is a subject that this always intrigued me, how they devised this plan and how they even tried to set forth the plan. It's amazing. It really, really is. I mean, the ingenuity that they demonstrated is unreal. Unreal. But anyways, I digress. This is the Trading Post podcast. And it's called the Trading Post for your own reference. It's called the Trading Post because we're going to trade stories. If you guys want to send in your own personal experiences of this or that, by any means. If you even just want to send in a story that you like, that you've heard, or that you throw it out there. Throw it out there. We'll throw it in the mix. I'll be glad to throw it in here and throw it into the mix. But that's why it's called the Trading Post. We're going to trade stories. We're going to do what we got to do here. We're going to have a good time. And I appreciate you all for listening, subscribing, liking, disliking. Just show me that you're out there. Show me that you're there. That's all. And hopefully we can make this channel grow to something nice, and we can have a lot of nice subjects and things like that on here. But you guys, all of y'all, have a great night. And I'll be back on again. We'll go ahead and load up another one. I think the next one might be, I was debating on D.B. Cooper for the next episode. I think that's fitting to follow in the footsteps of Alcatraz escape. Anyways, y'all have a great night. Bye.